Hello and welcome again to Pastor's Library. My name is Stephen Redman and this is the channel where we talk about everything to do with theology books. We major on books that are useful for seminary or university degrees, bachelor's, master's degrees, but also those that are relevant just to preachers, pastors, vicars. We hope that you like what we have to say. If you do like today's Pastor's Library, please give us a thumbs up on YouTube and please subscribe and click on the bell. That way you'll get to know as soon as we launch another episode. So today we're going to talk about commentaries, my favourite commentaries on the book of Galatians. Now we've just done 1 Thessalonians, which certainly it's my view that 1 Thessalonians was the earliest scripture in our Bibles. Galatians is the one that ties with that in popular discourse, and Galatians is certainly thought to be one of the earliest. Of course, as an indisputed work of the Apostle Paul, it offers us a real insight into the theology of the church when it first started. And of course, we thank God for his preservation of it. So, one thing that I'm going to say about Galatians that I also said about 1 Thessalonians is we are in the recycling phase of a lot of popular commentary works. And this is certainly true of Galatians. I mean, for example, the Hermeneia commentary on Galatians, which is by Betts, is 1979. Now, you're not going to get good marks for quoting that in any form of university essay, but at 357 pages, and certainly with a historiocritical viewpoint, it does have a lot to say, it has a lot to offer. This is probably not something to add to your library now, unless you are looking for research into older works. And if this isn't perhaps the most ideal one for today, but it is something that I've used in the past. I certainly have found it helpful. Fung, which is the New International Commentary on the New Testament, Galatians. Now, there's a replacement for this one, which we'll get to. But this was certainly a very helpful commentary to me. But this is now 1988, 342 pages. It's good, it's in-depth. If it's the only commentary you've got access to, it's a worthwhile commentary. It's just a little bit dated now in terms of its scholarship and bibliography, but a worthwhile book. This saddens me a lot because I love this series, but even the New International Greek Testament Commentary on Galatians is now dated for essay quotations. This is a 1982 book, 305 glorious pages written by F.F. Bruce. F.F. Bruce is one of the great commentators of my lifetime. This is a very, very good commentary. I am sure it would benefit your research, it would benefit your preaching, but this is probably not one of those that are going to get you any plus points in your bibliography on your essays. And the message is going on. This one, now this is one of my favourite of all time. This is Richard Longnecker's Word Biblical Commentary on Galatians. And I really do like Richard Longnecker. I have to be honest with you. I find him incredibly good to read. This is a highly academic commentary. It's a great book, gives you a lot of original language. Like most Word Biblical commentaries, the layout's rubbish. But other than that, it's a great commentary. I certainly would recommend you getting this if you see a cheap copy somewhere, maybe in a used bookshop, because this is a very worthwhile read. But we're still not onto those commentaries that are going to get you any points for a degree level essay. This is definitely a well worth reading one by Scott McKnight. This is a 1995 one, 320 pages. Scott McKnight, one of the great commentators of our current day generation, is still turning them out like mad. This is the New International Version Application Commentary, so it talks a lot more about application than other commentaries, and it does it very, very well. But in 2-3 years, this is going to be over the 30-year limit. So again, if you see it cheap, add it to your library. If you don't see it cheap, save your money for a newer commentary. A lot of those book titles are the ones that you would normally expect me to look at. And all of the ones I've just shown you were worthwhile. It's just that they are over the age limit for most essays. Now, here are the ones that are not. Ben Witherington III, to my mind, one of the greatest commentators we have. He has completed a book on every New Testament document, so he has a lot to offer. But this is also getting there. It's 1998, so you've got 5 years of this. So I suppose if you were just starting a degree now, you could safely say you'd finished it and it was still a quotable book. But Ben Witherington has a tremendous insight. His overview of the book is excellent, and I can't recommend this too highly. It really is something that everyone should read, and it's a great, not only an introduction to Galatians, it's a very advanced book on Galatians too, but one that's accessible and readable, and you will turn to it again and again. One that I think is often ignored is the New Interpreter's Bible Commentary. Now, this is one that comes in a dozen volumes. It's hardbound. It's a big, solid volume, and every volume has different books of the Bible in it. So volume 1 has Genesis to Leviticus, as well as a big introduction to the Old Testament. This is volume 9, and it's got Acts, Romans, 1 and 2 Corinthians, and Galatians, as well as a big introductory document. You might initially say, well, I want a proper commentary, 1-volume commentary, but these can add up to be very good value for money. And this has 152 pages of a Galatians commentary written by Richard Hayes. Richard Hayes has so much to give. He is really always worth picking up from a bookshelf. And at 152 pages, this is probably not quite as big a commentary as some, but these are big pages. I don't know, 152 of these might be worth 200 of a slightly smaller book. So this is an excellent commentary to have. And if you're going to pay £30 or £40 for a volume like this, then you've got to consider it does give you a good commentary on Acts, a good commentary on Romans, in fact, a very good commentary on Romans, good commentaries on the 2 Corinthians books, and Galatians 2. And that is what makes this good value. Most of the commentators in the New Interpreters series are well worth reading, and certainly for Galatians, Richard Hayes is in this. Now, we're getting nearer now to the ones that I wouldn't want to be without. My final 5 start after this volume. Now, this one is the New CovenantCommentary Series, which I really like this series. A lot of the authors are younger authors with a less celebrated range of published material, but still very, very good authors. There are, of course, a couple of leading people, like Michael Berg, for example, is represented there, and Gordon Fee. So it's not all the younger ones. But this is a very worthwhile commentary. At 212 pages, this was written in 2020, So this is a bang up to date one. This is going to be something you can quote for years to come without any fear. It's a very helpful commentary. Again, wide overview. I like some of the views in here. It is a good book. But now I'm going to come to what I would say are my top 5 commentaries on the book of Galatians. These are the 5 that I'm always looking into, the ones that I would ask first for. And the 5th one is from the Pentecostal Commentary Series, and it's Gordon Fee on Galatians. It offers 262 pages, and it was published in 2007. So again, plenty of limits there for us. Gordon Fee has always had a great overview of the New Testament. He has been, until very recently, one of our top commentators. God bless him, he has given us so much to read. In this, one thing that really stuck out for me is that when reading in chapter 4 about the Judaizers, one thing that Fee brings out is that there is an inference here to the Judaizers just wanting to go home with a collection of foreskins. It rather reminds you of David and the requirements all put on him to go and collect Gentile foreskins as a bride price for Michael. I don't remember reading that in anything else, and it just struck me as a good point. I think it's typical of the amount of detail Fee brings out of any scripture. So it's a very worthwhile book, and that runs as my number 5 at the moment. My number 4 is the current New International Commentary on the New Testament by David De Silva. David De Silva has turned out to be another one of those great modern day commentators who can turn his hand to almost anything. Despite being an apocrypha expert, he's excellent in his New Testament study. And this is a 2018 commentary, 542 pages, which makes it glorious in the amount of detail it offers. This is genuinely a commentary of our time, and it comes from that series which you can usually depend on. It normally offers you a very high standard of input, whether you're a pastor or just leading Bible studies and you want some in-depth research, or whether or not you are going a little bit more technical. They would never call this a technical commentary, but it is definitely a very academic one, and I recommend it. It's a great book. For my final 3, definitely the New Beacon Bible Commentary comes into this. And this is a 2012 book. It's a mere 400-page commentary. The New Beacon Bible commentaries tend to be affordable, and that's a big deal, I would suggest to you. Very, very good indeed. This is written by George Lyons. Now, I've read one or two other things by George Lyons, and I find him to be absolutely excellent. This is not a commentary you should waltz by and ignore on the bookshelf. This is a definitely worthwhile one. It's also sort of a bit of a guarantee that you're not going to get them written by any determinists. That, for my mind, makes it a safe read. Great amount of detail, very, very good layout, easy to read, easy to access. This is a standard reference for any pastor, I would suggest, or for anyone entering into a piece of research. An excellent commentary. Now I'm going to come down to my top 2, and I would suggest to you either of these would be a top commentary for anybody in their library. I'm going to stick my neck out and say this one is my second favourite, and this is N.T. Wright's commentary on Galatians. This is a hardback version, and it was published in 2021. So this is bang up to date in its levels of research, and it's an excellent commentary at 418 pages. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit more about some examples of what's in that in a moment, but I want to just tell you now what I think is my top commentary for Galatians at the moment. And this is the 2019 848-page commentary by Craig Keener. Craig Keener, who is an amazing theologian with a huge output, probably second only to N.T. Wright in terms of the number of books he turns out. But this is, for my mind, the very first place you would go when you want a commentary on Galatians. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples of differences between this and N.T. Wright. But I want to also point out that Keener is definitely the best for researchers. If you are really wanting to develop your reading list on the book of Galatians, then you should look no further than Keener. This 848-page book, 260 pages of it are bibliography and indices. Now, I'm going to say that again, just in case that didn't quite latch. 260 pages of bibliography and indices. This is really designed for someone that wants to find their way around the book, who wants to find out what influenced Keener, where did he get his information from. This is a phenomenal piece of work, and that compares with 35 pages in N.T. Wright. What more can I say? N.T. Wright is brilliant, but even if you just bought this for the indices and the bibliography, Keener knocks even Wright into a cocked hat. This is a brilliant piece of work. It's beautifully laid out. About a third of the pages on average are footnotes. The footnotes are enormously detailed. This is Keener at his best. Keener sees things in the text, in the original language, in the context of the times that other people seem to miss. And I really commend him for it. Just to make some comparisons with Wright. Wright talks about in Galatians 4:15 about if you could have done, you would have gouged out or plucked out your eyes and given them to me. And he simply says about this that he treats this as a simple metaphor. He doesn't really go into a tremendous amount of detail about that. However, Keener really gives a lot of background to why he believes that is a metaphorical statement. In Wright, you're sort of getting two sentences, but you're getting a paragraph in Keener. And I think that is typical, actually, of the difference between the two commentaries. One thing that I thought that Wright handled very well was at the end of chapter 5, and of course, Wright, the layout of Wright is a bit different. Wright sort of has a conclusion at the end of every chapter, or every section, I suppose, rather than just chapters. Whereas Keener is very much more a verse-by-verse intense commentary. But in the end of chapter 5, Wright talks about the Protestant angst over a particular issue. I thought, well, that isn't something that I particularly see in Keener. And I thought to myself, well, should we really be thinking that we should interpret the Bible and criticise what might be our own Protestant angst? But then actually I thought about it, and well, actually it is correct that Wright has brought this up. And Wright, again, is seeing some things which maybe are not obvious to me. What I would say is, there is no doubt in my mind that if I have got Keener's Galatians commentary, I have got the only commentary I must have. It is up to date, like Keener always does. He brings in quotations from every relevant person, and that's why you get a great bibliography from him. But ultimately, if there's a good book on Galatians that I should be studying, it's listed in Keener's bibliography. And particularly books on key points, which there might not be other commentaries, there might just be very narrow pieces of research, theses that have become books. This is definitely the one to have. Now, does that mean my old word biblical commentary is of no use to me? Well, you try and come and steal it from my library. You will have another thing coming. No, these other books are still great. And we have to remember that in terms of reading around our subject, in terms of being competent with the literature or mastering the literature, then having access to these books is very, very important. But in terms of a top commentary for today's level of understanding that we have achieved and after the levels of research that have been put in, then Wright and Keener, to my mind, have got to be the top commentaries. The New Beacon, George Lyons, is a great one to have as well. And it won't cost you as much as either of these. But ultimately, just keep reading round the subject. But also remember that if you are on a seminary or university course, you need to be focusing on newer books. That's just a simple fact. I hope that's helped you today. If it has, please remember to give us a thumbs up and please subscribe and click on the bell. It helps the algorithm, it helps us get known, and we would really appreciate your support on that. Thank you very much, and until next time, goodbye and God bless. Bye.